was a weak one.
Welcome back. That was. I didn't quite pop.
I don't even think you could hear that.
Uh, Welcome back to another episode of Stacking Dennys. I'm Jordan McAbee of Rotoballer. My co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network. 9 different winners in the last 9 races at Darlington now. Chase Briscoe holds off a hard-charging Kyle Busch in the final laps to punch his ticket to the playoffs. Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain get knocked out in the process. Truex and Gibbs make it on points, but we get another new winner in the last 2 weeks, making this playoff field solidified. We now have the final 16. We got a couple surprise winners there at the end of it, and a very, once again, sparked up debate on the legitimacy of these playoffs and everything around it. But Chase Briscoe earns this victory. That guy ran in the top 3 for most of the night at Darlington in that Southern 500. Did a crazy pass to get around Kyle Larson and then leader Ross Chastain there late in the race. Like I said, held off Kyle Busch, who once again finished second, missed out on the playoffs by 1 spot once again. Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain rounded out the top 5 at the end of it. Buescher, Hamlin, Logano, Corey LaJoie gets his first non-super speedway top 10 in the Cup Series. And then Tyler Reddick, who was sick all race. Of course, the Jordan jinx struck from the beginning. You know, Reddick supposedly shitting and pissing himself all race. Rounded out the top 10, fought through it, and won the regular season points championship along the way. But Briscoe in victory lane, 90-point-something% said that was a good race. Nick, do you agree?
I sure do. So I was muted there because I was typing something. I definitely agree. That was a great race. And it's not just for the end. That whole race was really good. Look, I mean, right off the bat, you know, we had Bubba Wallace leading, and then Kyle Larson was able to get the lead pass. You could pass for the lead on track. The only reason we didn't see many lead changes throughout the first 2 stages was because Kyle Larson had the best car.
That car had the field covered.
Yeah, there was times he was pulling away 3-4 seconds, and that doesn't make it a bad race. If the best car is out front and he's the best car, he should be pulling away. But right. Look how good the racing was. Todd Gilliland comes from 33rd up to 12th. Ryan Preece comes from 30th up to 12th. You know, about both of them got up to about there, just on speed, just on pure speed. And you know, several guys were able to make moves, and several guys ended up struggling. There was different strategies. You absolutely could pass in this race. I don't think that was a boring race at all. Plus, there were a lot of great battles towards the front of the field. I mean, if you look at Christopher Bell, William Byron, Tyler Reddick, you know, Bubba Wallace, all those guys, they were swapping places in the top 2 to 7, a whole bunch there. Chase Briscoe. So, yeah, it was a really good race. Awesome Darlington race. Obviously, tire fall off, different strategies. And then in stage 3, all sorts of strategies came into play, which is exactly what we want. You can't say that race was boring at all. That was a start to finish. That was a enticing race. And I don't know where people would get that this was boring in the first 2 stages, because it absolutely wasn't. I was hooked to the TV the whole time.
Yeah, I think the boring comes from Larson just kicking the shit out of everybody. But like the fact is, he had the best car. It was not close. Like Larson, and we have those races. We've seen it happen before. Larson just had the best car. He was, and that's one of his best tracks. Once again, he doesn't get the job done though. Once again, he doesn't win. Fastest car doesn't win. But
like the strategy too, just like, you know, Denny Hamlin went a few extra laps longer in stage 1, and then passed everybody back, and kind of there were some similar strategies going on in stage 2, and then like I said, stage 3 had all sorts of strategies. I mean, it was great racing. There was passing. There was strategy throughout the whole race. I don't know what else you could ask for from a Darlington race, and I think that's why 91% of the people liked it.
Right, because there was I think a lot of people were forgetting all those alternate strategies that were going on in the first couple of stages, because that was just another thing. And I also don't think the TV broadcast did a great deal of kind of like following that. Like they mentioned it, but it wasn't like a focus where it kind of could have been there at the end of the stage, you know, seeing Hamlin and the other guys on that strategy. I mean, that's the reason Kyle Busch got up there at the end and had a chance to win, because he was on an alternate strategy. So tons of different strategies at Darlington, which, you know, is something fun to see. Last race of the regular season, I can confidently say, you know, this past month of racing has just been incredible. A bunch of great racing. Nice to get the playoffs started, though. Like I said, Tyler Reddick, regular season champ. Congratulations to that team. I wish I would have known before the race that he was sick, and I wouldn't have, he was my pick, but like has been the case many times this year, my pick to win on Stacking Dennys has not performed up to expectations. But yeah, so like the big thing now is, Chris Buescher out of the playoffs, Ross Chastain out of the playoffs, and I'm curious. I feel like, going into that race, a lot of people thought Brad Keselowski could legitimately win that race. They thought Chris Buescher was going to be a legitimate top 5 contender. RFK did not bring the speed that they did in the first Darlington race, and that was one thing to note. If you remember back last week, like I picked Chase Briscoe for my 36 for 36 because he was so fast in the first race. Stuart Haas was so fast in the first race. SHR brought that same speed this weekend like they did in the first race. But they did not. RFK somehow just missed it, and I know Chris Buescher tweeted out like they did all they could and gave it, or I forget how he worded it, but or they did all they could do, but they scored 1 stage point, starting 10th, and I feel like the performance just wasn't there to justify him making the playoffs. But like I said, he's out of the playoffs. Ross Chastain's out of the playoffs. And we get Chase Briscoe in, who I know we're going to talk a little bit about the playoffs coming up. Obviously, like round 1 starts now. It's going to be a very interesting round 1, but there could definitely be some upsets going on here. But 9 different winners in the last 9 Darlington races. When do we have to start calling Darlington kind of like the unpredictable track here, as far as winners go?
I mean, we talked about it. We've seen some surprise winners. Eric Jones. Obviously back in the day, Regan Smith, Ricky Craven. So Darlington is, thrown its share of surprising winners, I would say. It doesn't happen all the time, but it certainly can happen. And it's a driver's track. That's why. So, that's why we can't count out some of these great drivers. I mean, Kyle Busch had a chance to win that. He would have been on the outside looking in. And he's great at Darlington. So especially if we get a late caution with the tire strategy, right? Like that throws things into question even more, especially if it's an in-between spot where we had kind of the leaders where you ran like 3 laps and then there's a caution. Is that enough to really kill your tires? Well, no, but 3-lap fresher tires still matters at Darlington. So if you had enough of a buffer of people staying out, like Briscoe did, Kyle Busch could make his moves, but that margin is really big on the first couple laps that Kyle Busch has an advantage, but it shrinks over time. So, it got to the point where, Kyle Busch still had an advantage over Chase Briscoe on tires, but that advantage shrunk as we got more and more laps. So there was a restart with 12, 15, something like that to go. And Kyle Busch is only on 3 to 5 lap fresher tires. Now it'll look like more laps because of caution laps, but like 3 to 5 green flag laps of use, then we could definitely see these things, even though that's not what happened here in terms of the winner. Chase Briscoe is the winner. He was the winner on speed, on one of the best cars. He had a top 3 to 5 car all day, especially hooked up at night. I think during the day he was probably a 3rd to 5th place car. At night he was a 2nd place car and made a great pass on Kyle Larson for the lead, 3 wide there. So totally deserved the win, Chase Briscoe. But that's the thing. Eric Jones totally deserved the win the year he got it. He's won it twice, but the year he was 80-1 with Legacy 2 years ago, which was then Petty, totally deserved that win at 80-1 odds. So Darlington can throw up these surprises. I wouldn't say it's all the time, but we've got a pretty decent sample size in the 2000s of 4, maybe even 5 examples of some medium to longer shot Darlington winners.
And like I said, a couple other things from that race. Corey LaJoie gets his first top 10 on a non-super speedway race. Ryan Preece was solid all day. The rest of Stuart Haas, not very often that you can say that. Todd Gilliland was good until he got wrecked by Buescher, or their little incident that happened. Gilliland looked like he was going to legitimately challenge for a top 10 finish. Martin Truex Jr. wrecked himself and Ryan Blaney in the lap 2. So the bad luck continues for Martin Truex Jr. Not the momentum you want heading into the playoffs, but then again, you get a restart, or kind of like a reset, I guess. And see what they can do with it. That's 5 straight finishes of 24th or worse for Truex, and 7 of the last 8, 24th or worse for him. Bubba Wallace didn't quite pull it off. Like you said, he started on the pole. He finished second in stage 1, led 37 laps. He was running in top 10 for most of the night, and then, those late restarts kind of hurt him. But that is what it is for them. They're out of the playoffs as well. SVG finished 28th. I still can't believe how many books had him top 10 at like plus 400 even to close the week. Didn't quite understand that. Oh, Josh Berry. What the fuck was he doing?
Oh my God. Stuffed in there.
He was fighting for like 7th place at the time. I can understand maybe forcing that issue if you're going for the lead, but like your teammates running away with the win to get into the playoffs and you pull that move, that was wild to me. I couldn't quite believe it. But it is what it is.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot of interesting things there at the end. A lot of questionable driver decisions, a lot of questionable crew chief decisions, which is a little bit of foreshadowing.
Right.
So yeah, just a lot of questionable decisions by drivers and crew chiefs and strategies and all that stuff. But in the end, it made it an already good race crazy exciting. The last stage was, especially the last stint there, it was totally enthralling with Ross Chastain taking different strategies, having to win, and then Ty Gibbs trying to cover that. And then there was a point where Ross was leading because of all that. And there were strategies all over the place, and it just was a matter of what would work out based off when the cautions didn't fly. So I think by the end of that, there were maybe 7 different strategies.
Yeah, it was wild, and like somehow Ross Chastain ended up with a top 5 finish, which definitely he wasn't running there, but they were doing all they could to get the win. Once again though, second week in a row, Kyle Busch could have wrecked the leader to get into the playoffs, and he chose the high road and did not. Shout out Austin Dillon. I just need to mark that one more time, that Kyle Busch tried to race cleanly, or did race cleanly, to try and get the win, but he came up a little short. But anything else from Darlington before we move on here?
I'm just going to point out my bad luck again. The whole race, there were 2 Chevys running inside the top 10, Larson and Byron.
Yep.
And I had under 3.5 Chevys finishing inside the top 10 at plus money.
Same.
I was an amazing bet, considering only 2 were even top 10 quality, and 4 end up finishing inside the top 10 because of all the bullshit that happened, the bullshittery, including Corey LaJoie, who got his first career top 10 on a non-drafting oval.
He was the
first
fourth
one
Chevy
ever, and he was a Chevy. Yeah. Just what kind of shit luck do I have this year? Had Ryan Preece for a top 10, Ryan Preece for a top Ford. We'll talk about that in a bit. I had, William Byron running up front all day outright, which didn't win. I'm not expecting it to win, though, but he and Chase Briscoe were pretty much equal all day. They were running around each other until that very last stage, and then, of course, Byron gets caught up in an incident. But what if it was Briscoe that got caught in an incident? It could very well have been Byron winning that, I mean, it's one of those things. I bet on some fast cars, other than Alex Bowman. He was slow as hell. Bet on some fast cars, and it just didn't work out again. So what are you going to do? But I really liked that Ryan Preece call I had, and the Todd Gilliland call I had as well. Both of them had strong cars until Gilliland kind of slapped the wall at one point, and then, of course, got in an incident with Chris Buescher there at the end, which, again, we'll talk about. But Preece and Gilliland both had cars capable of running near the top 10, and at that point, anything can happen, and you're 50-1 or 175-1 for a top Ford. All we're asking is for things to go our way for one time, and it still didn't go my way. So just going to lament my bad luck once again.
Yeah, it's almost unbelievable. And if you weren't tracking your bets, I'd call bullshit on the amount of bad luck you've had, because it's ridiculous. And I'm with you. I was on that Chevy bet as well, had it at plus 135. And I thought, like, even at the end of the race, I'm like, oh, that bet should have hit. And then I looked, I'm like, fucking Corey LaJoie, 4th one. shout out to Bet365 for they put they had the number of drivers on the lead lap set at 24.5, which if you look at the history of the Southern 500 it's been like major under most of the time. Not to mention it's a very long race, so the chances of more people getting lapped are even higher. So I forget, I think like 17 cars ended up on it. Wasn't even close once again for I think the third or fourth year in a row. First time I've ever bet number of cars finish on a lead lap. I've never seen that much of a blatant kind of mispress there. But
I did hit Christopher Bell top 5, so I was happy about that because he was a top 5 car all day. Even though in practice he had terrible fall off. He was like 20th in the lap averages, and he didn't look good in practice, but he pulled it through in the race. They got it together, found something, and ran borderline top 5 all day, 5th, 6th, 4th, 3rd in that neighborhood. So I'm glad I hit something. Yeah, I'm glad I hit something, but man, the luck this year has been just unbelievable. I think 2 weeks ago I finished 2nd and 3rd again for probably the 5th time this year, and losing out on Denny Hamlin win on the last lap, losing out on a Blaney win on the last lap this year has all just been. It's been one of those years, man. But
yeah,
that's betting long shots. Like when we think about it, even when we bet the favorite, they're a long shot. If they're 5-1, that still means they're only 16% to win the race. Yep. So you can go incredibly long stretches without a win when you're betting 5-1 or longer, let alone 10-1 or 20-1, things like that. So that's just the nature of NASCAR betting. And it'll be nice. One of these days we'll hit one of these 175-1s, and it'll happen more frequently than 1 out of 175 times. And that's all you're looking for in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once again, live betting.
And congrats to those that did hit Chase Briscoe 80-1, 100-1 out there. Congrats to all of you. Well done. Yeah,
that was a solid bet. Live betting was once again very fun to watch. Some books out there are so slow. One of them, and obviously this ended up being a bad bet, but there was no way I wasn't ever going to bet this. After like what would have been either the last or the second last set of green flag stops. I don't know if they ever got to the last set of green flag stops, but the last green flag stop after that, a book opened Larson at plus 220 while he was 6 seconds ahead of the field. Please keep doing that. Or like you and I both got Byron 20-1 when his car came alive at night, where like every other book has Byron at 7-1, and then you see one random 20 out there. So yeah, if you're live betting, which I like, if I can actually sit down and watch a race and put my full attention on it, and I'm not like busy with something else or out in public or something, live betting, it's difficult to watch both. But if you can watch the TV, watch the lap times, and watch the live odds, there's a ton of value out there that you can usually find with some of these books. That are just slow.
Here's the funny thing, and this goes to the playoffs, and my playoff bet of Chase Briscoe to not make the playoffs at minus 1,000. Chase Briscoe closed at what, 40-1, something like that?
I want to say it was 40, yeah.
So I still was favored to get it in very good because, the 40-1 means even with the books taking some juice, or even if it was 25-1 with the books taking some juice, it was more like 30-1 against making the playoffs. And I got it minus 1,000. And that's with closing lines after practice and qualifying. Going into the weekend, he was 80, 100-1 at some places. So
yeah,
I got my bet in very good. It just so happened this was one of those times where they figured it out. They got it hooked up, dialed in, and the end game stuff fell his way as well. And I would 100% bet it again. Minus 1,000. I would 100% bet it again. That said, I could have hedged at 80-1 or 100-1, locked in a guaranteed profit in case he won, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not my style. I didn't have value on him. I didn't have value on him at 75 or 80-1 or whatever it was. And then post practice and qualifying, I didn't have, even though he definitely improved on my model. He improved to, I don't have the number in front of me. Oh wait, I do. Darlington's simulations. Chase Briscoe improved to 2.1%. That's still, 40 something to 1, not quite 50 to 1. So couldn't bet him really, even after practice and qualifying, as in terms of plus EV. I still could have hedged to lock in my playoff, bet as a profit, but again, not my style. I like to hedge with plus EV bets, and my model didn't have it as plus EV. And turns out, it worked out for Chase Briscoe, but I bet it again.
And it just,
I was going to say about the live betting component, like even up until he took the lead, he was an underdog to win that race. And even after he took the lead, he's still only like minus 160 and stuff like that. So like at no point did I ever feel like, gosh, Chase Briscoe is the dominant car here. I made a terrible bet on the no playoffs. Like, it's just one of those things. 9 times out of 10, he doesn't even come with that quality of a car to Darlington. Like, look at the first race. He was just good, not amazing. Even though he did finish 5th, it was like he didn't run 5th all race.
Right.
And then they improved on it this time, and everything had to work out as well. So, just one of those things, but. Always fun to lose a minus 1,000 bet because, that's one of those things where you don't typically lose those very often. And the whole idea is even if I bet a minus 1,000 bet, as long as I hit it better than 10 times out of 11, it's still a profit. And I do think I would have hit that better than 10 times out of 11 when I made it with like 5 weeks left in the regular season. Because realistically, the only races he could have won were the Super Speedway and
Yeah, and it just shows, like, one, I mean, there's nothing easy about betting on sports.
No.
And there's no such thing as winning every week and winning, like, every bet you make. Stuff like this is going to happen, and Nick's a good example of just rotten luck. If I had the bad luck you had, honestly, I don't know if I'd probably stop betting. That'd be where I would be. Just the amount of bad luck that you've had this year, it's borderline unbelievable.
You gotta roll with it though. And
yeah,
after we had that summer Olympics break, I did make some adjustments, right? Like I'm focusing more on like top 5s, top 10s, and making those my full unit or even larger bets. And then my win bets, I used to always just do like to win 10 to 12 units on win bets. I still do that if I really have an edge, but I'm more doing like, let's try to win in the 5 to 8 unit range. So that way, if I do have a good day on top 5s, 10s, matchups, other kinds of props, those things, then even if I miss all my win bets, I still can return a nice profit. So just a little adjustment there on that, only because it looks better for the graph if you start clawing things back. Because otherwise, like the more plus EV thing to me is to still bet to win 10 to 12 units when I'm showing edge on everything.
Right.
Push those edges when I have them. It just, by betting, we just talked about, by betting outrights, it just is longer to realize that equity typically because you're betting far longer underdogs. So you could, as we said, go on this huge downswing, which isn't as much of a downswing as I mentioned as it is in the app, because I have 18 units there from William Byron that aren't in there. I had another bet the other day that I think we talked about it a week or two ago that I didn't get to track that hit at 7 to 1 or something. So just always trying to make it look worse, air quote, in the app, just for, to be conservative with my record, to show, as much of an honest profile as I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But NASCAR is one of those things, 36 week season, actual races, you throw in all the other ones, we got about, 40. It's one of those where it's probably best just to look at where you start and where you finish, because when it's up and down, and you go through a bad period, it's not going to look good, obviously. But if at the end of the year you're up, that's all that matters. I mean, that's the season as it goes. It's definitely, NASCAR betting is a marathon, not a sprint, and it's certainly possible to, have a bunch of good weeks in a row and massive weeks in a row. But you can also go through a little lull there, as we see.
Yeah, exactly. And let's do I'm doing a real quick exercise. Let's say I bet on a driver 10-1 to win. Then with 40 races in a year, the probability that if they're 10-1 to win, probability that they win exactly 0 races, is still, I was using a binomial calculator, but it seems to be giving me the wrong number. But anyway, I'll figure it out. But it's still like the probability that they win 0 races. If your chance of success is 10% to win a race, the probability that they win exactly 0 races is still, very real.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, look at Martin Truex Jr. He's probably been about 10% the race, let's say on average this year, maybe a little less, but you get the idea. Like, let's say he's been 5% to win a race. What's the probability you end up with exactly 0 wins? It's like 13%. So, Martin Truex Jr. has hit that 13% of having 0 wins. That's about the probability I have of going winless on a full NASCAR season. Now, I haven't gone winless, but you get the idea.
Right.
That 1 out of every 6, 7, 8 years, you probably should have a losing year. And given my track record of having gone a decade, more than a decade, with only 2 losing seasons, we're right around that 1 out of every 5 or so years.
Right.
I'm making up like 6, 7, 8, but that's for like an individual NASCAR driver. I think as a bettor, it's probably easier to have a losing record than that because you don't have as big an edge as Martin Truex Jr. would have versus shit boxes, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where every 3 to 5 years, hopefully on the longer side, you're expected to have a losing year on average. And that's me this year. I mean, I'm definitely having a losing year, but it's okay. It's not as bad as it looks in the app, and it's okay. I feel good about, I would say I feel good about 85% of my bets.
And you're not panic betting to try to make up.
No.
Like
that's the other thing. I mean, don't panic bet to make it up. That's a way to get even further in the hole.
Oh yeah. When I go through a rough stretch, I usually like step back, and like where like if I'm showing a little bit of value on bets that I normally hit when I'm like feeling good and on a good run, like I'd hit them. Like if I take a step back, I'm not touching them. Like no, I'll let those go. But the ones that look like that I show a ton of value on, then yeah, I'm still gonna bet those. But I get a little bit more conservative on what I actually bet and kind of just go much more toward the ones that I'm like, okay, this is really good value out there.
Absolutely.
Anything left on Darlington for you?
Nope.
All right, we're going to whine about it then. Presented by Luvabella Winery. And I will go first. Yeah, you're going first in picks to win and 36 or 36, so I'll go first for this. I got another. I got the Mexican style lager from Brew Kettle tonight.
Nice, that one's good.
I forgot to get limes again. Damn it!
Speaking
of limes,
I went with the White Raja, which we've talked about before. But
I haven't tried that one yet. The lighter IPA.
Oh, you haven't tried the lighter one. This is the regular one. Yeah, no, this is the regular White Raja.
Oh, okay.
The heavier IPA that I really like, but yeah.
Yeah, I haven't tried the other one yet. Speaking of lime, have you tried the garage beers?
No, I've not.
Okay. They're decent, but I tried the lime one this past weekend. And it's very good. Like, you remember, like, the Bud Light lime, and it was, like, a ton of lime flavor and, like, very sugary. This is, like, it tastes like beer with just, like, a splash of lime juice. Like, they're really good. I liked it a lot. I wasn't really expecting that kind of subtleness. Not to talk about other beers here, but garage beers limes are very good. But as is this Brew Kettle Los Colores Mexican-style lager. Like I said, I forgot to get limes, so I don't have that. But my wine about it is the Chris Buescher situation. And if anybody's been following me on Twitter, I've been pretty outspoken about this. Because we just dealt with Richmond. Austin Dillon blatantly, wrecking Logano and then blatantly right rear hooking Denny Hamlin to get the win. And what happened at Darlington this past weekend was Todd Gilliland was passing Chris Buescher, came up, got Buescher into the wall, and then next thing you know, Gilliland's getting turned from his right rear bumper from Buescher. Now, whether it's intentional or not, my first response was, holy shit, he just right rear hooked him. And I tweeted this multiple times. He just right rear hooked him. And I'm not going to fully, that is not my stance. Is not that he 100% right rear hooked him.
Right.
But the fact that NASCAR and nobody is pointing out that this should be reviewed, I think is insane. Because essentially during that time, and what would have happened if there wasn't the melee afterwards, is that would have got Chris Buescher into the playoffs. That move. So why is this not being checked? Because from one angle, you could make the argument that Chris Buescher intentionally right rear hooked Todd Gilliland. All I'm asking for is NASCAR to look at the data and be like, did he or not, and then penalize him accordingly. Because the quick no and the absolute this is not a good thing is right rear hooking somebody. But as far as I know, Pac responded to a tweet about it today, and basically said that it's not, or he hasn't heard that it's going to be reviewed. My question is why? Why is this not getting reviewed? Because I feel like it should. If there is a potential chance, again, I'm not saying he did it, but I feel like there is a greater than 5% chance that he right rear hooked him. Why are you not looking into this? And I think it's simply because Chris Buescher didn't make the playoffs. So if he got penalized for it, it wouldn't matter. So I don't like that is a potential possibility and a potential where my brain goes for this, that NASCAR just doesn't care because it's not a major storyline. In the end, it didn't matter with the race or the playoffs. But yep. I feel like, and I'm very annoyed, clearly, if I'm talking about something for 3 straight days, I'm fucking annoyed about it, that this should be reviewed. That's all I'm asking. I'm not sitting here saying Chris Buescher did it. Some of my tweets probably said Chris Buescher did it, but it is what it is. I am not with 100% confidence saying that he right rear hooked him, but I'm saying that it is a much higher chance that he did than what people believe it is throughout the Twitter sphere.
I agree with all of that, and I don't think he intentionally right rear hooked. I think he right rear hooked Todd Gilliland only insofar as that Todd Gilliland came up on him, and there's nothing you can do when a driver comes up to you and hits you with his right rear. But that's my view. But I agree with you 100%. Should be reviewed. 100% should be reviewed. Because there was a right rear hook, whether it was intentional or not, you can't doubt there was a right rear hook. It doesn't mean it was intentional. It just means look at it. But to me, that was Todd Gilliland coming up on Chris Buescher, which, again, even if Todd Gilliland came up on Chris Buescher, review it just so we're clear on it, right? That's all I'm asking, and that's all you're asking. Even though we disagree on who we think did it, we both agree it should be reviewed. Yeah,
and another thing that a lot of people in my mentions are, Gilliland got up into Buescher, got him into the wall, so he deserved it. That does not, you don't get a right rear hook somebody for getting you into a wall like that. Not to mention Buescher's car was fine. He finished fucking 5th or 6th.
Yeah. Well, look at Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson got into Bubba Wallace, and then Bubba Wallace went and right rear hooked Kyle Larson. That doesn't mean Kyle Larson deserved it because Bubba got in the wall situation. A little bit. Well, no, because that was, 5 seconds later and a clear left turn down the track. But, if Buescher did intentionally hook Gilliland, it is a similar situation, yes. Now the question is, did he intentionally hook him? I don't believe so. I believe Todd Gilliland just kind of came up and hooked himself. But, at the same time, I agree with you. Should be reviewed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's my whine about it. Just, to me, every time I watch it, I see Gilliland or Buescher coming so far down, and then I, start connecting the dots. He's in a position to do that. It benefits him to do that. He's probably pissed off because they were running like shit all day. They were probably going to miss out on the playoffs because, they weren't good. So I think, like I said, I think the possibility is there. And with that, and maybe they did review it, but if they did review it, I'm pretty sure Elton Sawyer said they weren't going to review it. There was no need to review it, which that just irritates the shit out of me. Why is there no reason to review that? Maybe Gillen said he's fine with it or something. I don't know, but that is my whine about it. I'm going to drink my beer now.
All right. Well, my turn. So my whine about it is a little bit of a lament to my Ryan Preece bets. 27-1 for top 10. 175-1 as the top Ford. And he had a great car. He legitimately just drove into the top 12. And from there, if you're top 12 and the only Fords running ahead of you are Chase Briscoe and Josh Berry, and maybe Brad Keselowski at certain points in time, 175-1 is a great bet, right? So what happened at the end there? Well, there was a bunch of cautions, and prior to the last caution, so not the very last caution, but prior to the one prior to that, Preece came in for new tires. I think Christopher Bell did. A few other drivers did as well. And Bell and Preece and whoever else it was, I forget, were just driving through the field. They came from outside the top 10. Preece got all the way up to 6th place by the time the caution flag flew, and that was 1 or 2 laps in. If that thing stays green to the end, Preece has that advantage even over Chase Briscoe on tires, Josh Berry on tires. He passed Josh Berry for 6th, so he had already passed Berry. He was second Ford at that point, behind only his teammate Chase Briscoe. And Briscoe was in Kyle Larson's dirty air at that point, I believe it was. I think that was, before he. No, I don't think it was before. I think that was the restart. Chase Briscoe got the clean air, but he was still kind of intact with Kyle Larson and all them. I do think there's a very real chance Ryan Preece passes Chase Briscoe, especially if Chris Bell passes Chase Briscoe, which I think would have happened. Then Briscoe gets in dirty air. I think Ryan Preece passes Chase Briscoe for the top Ford, given the fresher tires. But what ended up happening is caution flag flew. So bad luck right there on my part that the caution flag flew, because I had a very good shot at 175-1. I was definitely getting a top 10 because Preece was up there on fresh tires and was going forward still. I was going to pass a few other guys on older tires. So it was definitely hitting my 27-1.
6th at that point.
Yeah, he was 6th, and he was still going to pass people. So 27-1, top 10, great bet. But top Ford I thought was in the picture. So lamenting my bad luck that the caution flew. But the real thing I'm whining about is when that caution flag flew, some of those guys that took tires, Kyle Busch, came in and took tires again, even though they only had 2 or 3 laps on their tires, or 5 laps, or whatever that stint was. It was a short stint. Some of those guys that were on the same strategy as Preece there that had just taken tires came in and took tires again. Guess who did not? Ryan Preece. Guess how many cars stayed out? It was like 4 or 5, and Preece was 4th of those. So he's the last car, or basically the last car on now used tires, because 3-5 laps wears the tires. He's a sitting duck, and they had an extra set of tires. Crew chief has to call him in. Has to. You're not winning the race from the 2nd or 3rd row with Kyle Larson in front of you and Chase Briscoe in front of you and Christopher Bell in front of you, with Christopher Bell being on the same tires as you. You're just not winning that race. Now, yes, you were on fresher tires than Larson and Briscoe, but they had the clean air. I think there was 1 or 2 guys that stayed out even on other cautions. So I don't know, it got all jumbled. I don't remember the exact stuff, but I was
Chastain stayed out after he had
on super old tires. I think that's what it was that caused Briscoe to get Larson. But so Preece has to come in and get tires. There's no other call that crew chief can make. You're not winning from where you were. Your best shot at winning is doing what Kyle Busch did and coming and getting more tires. Mm-hmm. And Kyle Busch ended up passing Christopher Bell, who was on your tire strategy. Kyle Busch ended up passing you, who was on your tire strategy, because you're on your own tire strategy. But you get the point. Like, Kyle Busch, even though he had previously been on your strategy, still came in and passed you from, I think he restarted like 10th and Priest restarted 4th. It just, absolutely terrible decision by the crew chief. You give your driver every chance to win, and you just didn't right there. I don't even know who Priest's crew chief is because he's so irrelevant. Priest is typically. That like I'm not into crew chief analysis on Ryan Priest. Let me look it up.
Chad Johnston.
Ryan Priest, Chad Johnston. Yeah, he's a decent crew chief usually. I wouldn't say the best ever, but also not the worst ever. But he definitely made a bad decision here.
Crew chief for?
He's been around a long time. He used to crew chief for.
He was with Tony Stewart, wasn't he?
Tony Stewart, I believe it was. Yeah.
Isn't that when Stewart went to shit too?
Stewart also got old then. But yeah, in 2011, Stewart won the championship with Darian Grubb, fired Grubb, and had a different crew chief in 2012. But then in 2014, Chad Johnston moved over.
He was with Truex while he was with Michael Watchup Racing.
Yeah, there you go. So Chad Johnston's been around a long time, but I think he made a really bad decision there to not bring Priest in for more tires. It's Darlington. You got to bring every time, pretty much. Like I said, you got to come in for tires. And if Ryan Priest comes in for tires, he secures the top 10. He fell all the way to 12th. If you come in 4th and you fall to 12th, you clearly made a bad decision. But if you come in for tires, you already end up starting inside the top 10 because that's where you were anyway, and you were right around there with Kyle Busch, so you're starting right around the top 10, and you move forward just like Kyle Busch did. So you're going to finish better than 12th. And it just was an absolutely terrible call. As soon as you see 2 cars stay out, you know you're going to be on the second row. You got to come in.
You're coming in.
Got to come in. I would have told Ryan Priest, if you see 2 cars in front of you stay out, you come in. That would have been my call.
It's exactly what I was going to say. You read my mind. Johnson also used to crew chief for Kyle Larson, so it's got me thinking maybe he is just used to superior drivers, and like Larson wouldn't have free fallen like Priest did there.
Yeah.
At the end, Tony Stewart wouldn't have free fallen. Martin Truex Jr. wouldn't have free fallen.
Right.
So maybe that's the aspect of it. But yeah, that was an awful call. Yeah, two people stay out, you're coming in. Like that's just
Absolutely.
common sense. But it is what it is. Speaking of, you reminded me on that one, I think it was the second to last restart, maybe the final restart.
Especially with 15 or 12 to go or whatever it was, right? Like it was.
Yeah.
If it was 3 to go, that's different. It was 12 laps, 15 laps, whenever that. I don't remember the exact lap number, but it was in the double digits. It was in the teens or 12.
Enough to get another lowest caution or shit like that.
Exactly. But even then, if it just stays green, like you have fresher tires. You got plenty of green flag laps to start passing people. It's just awful call.
Speaking of, it was either the last restart or the second to last restart. Do you remember, and I pointed it out live, but I haven't went back and actually watched it. Kyle Larson, for whatever reason, was almost 3/4 of a car length behind. I think it was Briscoe that restarted it. Anyway, it's where Larson, like I knew Larson wasn't winning this race. I want to know what the fuck Kyle Larson was doing hanging back that far, because it got Briscoe so far ahead on the restart that he cleared him before they even got close to turn 1. Like that's how far Larson was hanging back. And for the life of me, I want someone to explain it to me if there's a reason, because I don't know why you would do that. And I want to know if there's an actual reason or if Larson was just sleeping or what. Like it was baffling to me when I was watching it. I was just like, what the fuck is he doing? So I don't know if you watched it or anything, but I remember I tweeted it out. I was like, what is going on? It just stuck with me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That was weird.
I need to go back and find video of that.
Chad Johnston, you're my one about it this week.
Congratulations. Oh. As always, though, presented by Luvabella Winery. And the Brew Kettle, as I said before. We're going to talk about these playoff standings and the first round of the playoffs, because I'll tell you what, we got Atlanta, we got Watkins Glen and we got Bristol. And I'll tell you what, these are not easy tracks. Atlanta especially. It's not a full super speedway, but it can get there. We can have a big one. We can get drivers having issue. Like, nothing is guaranteed at Atlanta. Watkins Glen, there are several good drivers in this playoff field that are not good at Watkins Glen. Bristol, if they bring the same tire that they did earlier this year, we could see a ton of people have issues at Bristol. What I'm getting at here is I don't think anybody is safe in this first round, and I think there is a decently good chance that we see a top contender drop out of this round. Now, am I going to sit here and make a prediction of who that's going to be? No. But I legitimately think someone like a Denny Hamlin, someone like a Ryan Blaney, someone like a Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano could be an early exit out of these playoffs round one just because of this set of races that we have coming up.
Oh, 100% agree with you. And I mean, Joey Logano might be a prime candidate.
Yep.
Like, yeah, Atlanta, he's been great there. But if he, it's Atlanta. If he gets caught up in a wreck, Watkins Glen has been like okay to him at times, but it's still a road course race, and he hasn't been the best road course racer in recent years, especially in the next gen.
Mm-hmm.
Bristol's Bristol. I mean, I think Joey Logano's a prime candidate, and he was one of those. Technically, that was on the outside looking in a way. Like, yes, he finished top 16 in points, but had he not gotten his win, he would have been even behind Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher in terms of the points, right? So he's behind all those guys.
He wouldn't have made those guys were.
Yeah, he wouldn't have made the playoffs if he didn't win Nashville.
Mm-hmm. I
agree with you.
Yeah, I think I started doing my Rotoballer preview of the full all 16 drivers round ones. And the more I got into looking at this and just looking at these three tracks, I'm like, if Atlanta gets crazy, this round is going to be a nail biter for a lot of teams at Watkins Glen and Bristol. Because like I said, there's quite a few that are not great. Now, like Chase Elliott, fucking awesome at Watkins Glen, very good at Bristol. Kyle Larson, same exact thing. Very good at Bristol, very good at Watkins Glen. I'm not worried about those guys really. Christopher Bell, I'm not worried about. Tyler Reddick, I'm not worried about. William Byron, I think is good.
Yeah.
But like Denny Hamlin, that penalty that they got, he's only 10 points above the cut line heading into Atlanta. He has a bad Atlanta race. There's a path that we could see Denny Hamlin exit this playoffs early after the first round.
Absolutely.
Which is just amazing to see, amazing to think about because it's just that tight this year. But with that being said, let me pull up the standings here quick. Larson, after regular season, he's 35 points above the cut line. Bell is 27 above. Reddick's 23. Byron 17. Blaney 13. Everyone else is within 10 points of each other. So there are 5 drivers that have a plus over 10-point advantage on the cut line. Everybody else is close as hell, including Keselowski, Logano, Cindric, Suarez, Bowman, Briscoe, Harrison Burton, Ty Gibbs, and Martin Truex Jr. are all within 3 points of each other to start out this playoffs. This Atlanta race is going to be so important, and what sucks is we know who should be fast here, but anything can happen at these races. How we saw Daniel Suarez barely get the win earlier this year. He could do it again. He's really good at this new Atlanta. Kyle Busch was right there. He's obviously not in the playoffs, but Ryan Blaney's always really good here. As you said, Joey Logano can run up front. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be this first round of playoffs, I think has the potential to be epic. And as you know me, I'm rooting for the chaos.
Yep. Well, here's one thing. That penalty to Denny Hamlin could loom large, right? Denny Hamlin would have finished 4th in the point standings. Instead, he finished 7th in the regular season point standings. That right there is 3 playoff points that in a round like this with wild card Atlanta, honestly, wild card Watkins Glen and wild card Bristol, right? Like, these are 3 lower predictable races. It's not your classic mile and a half or your Pocono or those kinds of things where your standard intermediates. Not even a Dover, or a Richmond or a Phoenix or anything like that has higher predictability. All three of these are in the lower half, if not lower third of predictability for the whole season. So every point is essential here, and Denny Hamlin lost 3 points from the team doing and TRD doing stuff with the engines that wasn't supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree with you. I don't see anybody who's safe here. Even Ryan Blaney, even William Byron. I don't think they're safe. I think Tyler Reddick, Bell, and Larson you've got to feel good about.
All right.
But at the same time, if you're the first one to wreck at Atlanta in the big one,
Yep.
And then something happens at either Glen or Bristol, you're right there on the cut line.
Yep.
So even though these are good tracks for, especially for Kyle Larson, Glen and Bristol should be great tracks for him. Same for Bell and Reddick. Those should be great tracks, those two. We saw tire issues at Bristol. Who knows if a tire issue bites them this time around?
Yep.
Road courses are road courses. If you just get on the absolute wrong caution timing strategy, you're back there in 20-something place. And Atlanta, you can get caught in the big one. This is an absolute wild card round. I wouldn't be surprised if Harrison Burton makes it through. I'm serious.
I'm with you, and that's why I tweeted out earlier today. I hope and pray that sportsbooks open up odds for drivers to make it to the next round, because I just feel like there would be value out there. Because this it has the potential to be quite an unpredictable round. And then that throws out, like at Watkins Glen, we know that there's probably going to be two strategies with the stages. If you're in the playoffs, what do you do? And obviously we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but do you go for the stage points because your points are racing in the playoffs because you had a shitty Atlanta, or are you good to go for the win? That is, I'm just saying the potential possibilities here for craziness, and it all starts at Atlanta this weekend. And what do you think the chances are that Atlanta gets even crazier than it normally is, because these drivers know that this round is so unpredictable? Or do you think that there's more chances that they're going to play safe?
I think there's a good chance some of the top guys play it safe, but a guy like Harrison Burton has to go for it. A guy like Chase Briscoe probably has to go for it. Daniel Suarez has to go for it. Austin Cindric has to go for it. Right? These guys that are big underdogs, even Joey Logano, has to go for it. They need stage points and they need the finish.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to make this more intense for those guys. That said, if you're a Denny Hamlin, you kind of need the stage points too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can play it a little bit more cautious if, you get decent stage points in stage 1 and 2. So you try to avoid any potential wrecks, but it's also not a super speedway. It's a pseudo speedway. And sometimes we just don't see the wrecks at Atlanta like we do. Especially because the other 20 cars, chartered cars, are not, must-win mode. They'd love to get a win. They know they can get a win here, but it's not must-win mode or the season's over, because their season's already over. So,
and they don't want to be the ones that take out a championship contender either.
Exactly. And it's also not the Daytona 500, right? If it was Daytona 500 or winner you're out, then it would be really crazy. So I do think there could be some intensity early on from the playoff contenders that need stage points, but I'm not so sure the intensity would be super high at the end, which could lend itself to a guy like a Tyler Reddick or a Christopher Bell or Kyle Larson playing it a little bit safe, so they know they can get to Watkins Glen very solid in the points.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at, so we've had 5 races on this new Atlanta. It was repaved at the end of 2021, and then our first race was 2022. So start of the next gen car also introduced the start of Atlanta. First race we had 23 cars on the lead lap. Second race we had we had 21 cars on the lead lap. Third race we had 23 cars on the lead lap. Fourth race we had, there's a big one, 27 cars on the lead lap.
And then
so
22.
Pretty calm race last July. And then the first race this year, 22.
So it
And
seems
this
to be
is
in that
also
seems to be in that low 20s number.
low 20s.
For the most part, other than that 127.
Yeah, and this is also the first first time that this has been a playoff race, and the latest that we've ran at Atlanta in this next gen car.
Yeah.
So a bunch of different aspects that could affect how this race plays out, which is just I think this is the latest we've ran at Atlanta. Like in the year, they used to run in September. Never mind, or they used to run this time of year, back when it was old Atlanta, like 2013. But yeah, I don't know what to expect, and I feel like we're going to be on the same page here as far as Atlanta goes. I have no interest in betting anything right now. I've looked at all the odds. I've looked at top manufacturers. I did see like a couple group bets, I thought, and then like I think I saw Eric Jones at 12 or 15 to 1 top Toyota, which I didn't mind that one. But I'm not jumping to bet anything this week because it just the unpredictability of Atlanta, all these potential factors that could impact this race. I'm good at possibly not even betting this entire race and just enjoying it.
Yeah, it is still a super pseudo speedway race, right? Mm-hmm. So there's still that aspect of it. We've seen Ricky Stenhouse Jr. go out and lead 22 laps at Atlanta. We've seen Eric Jones go and lead laps at Atlanta before popping a tire. We've seen Ross Chastain go lead laps at Atlanta before popping a tire in the lead. Those kinds of things. So we just saw Daniel Suarez win in Atlanta earlier this year. So I think there's probably some value. For example, Daniel Suarez, right? I mean, he finished 18th in the point standings. Austin Cindric finished 19th. Todd Gilliland finished 20th. Kyle Busch 16th. Chase Briscoe 17th. If we look at the odds here, Todd Gilliland 40 to 1, like he's a pretty good drafting track driver. I don't hate 40 to 1. Chase Briscoe 45 to 1. We've seen Eric Almirola lead laps, a bunch of laps at this track. We've seen Chase Briscoe lead a bunch of laps at Darlington and or Talladega recently. So I don't hate some of these long shot bets, especially Chase Briscoe is in the playoffs. He's going to be gunning for the win. This is a great opportunity for him to get to the next round.
Austin Cindric as well. Cindric, but Austin Cindric sitting at 20 to 1. I can't get there.
Right. I agree. I can't get there at 20, but Chase Briscoe
Bell,
at 40,
however.
Chase Briscoe at 45. I can get there in Chase Briscoe at 45, I think.
Gilliland's an interesting one too because I fully expect the front row Fords to be great at qualifying once again.
Yep, absolutely.
Which we saw last time. McDowell was on the pole, Legato second, Kyle Busch third. They all led 27 or 28 laps. That's weird. 27, 27, 28. And then Todd Gilliland started fourth. He led 58 laps.
58 laps.
Blaney led 31.
40 to 1.
Cindric led 32. Yep. Yeah, Gilliland led the most laps in Atlanta.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is 50 to 1. Like, we almost saw Corey LaJoie win at this track.
Mm-hmm.
And he's 55 to 1. Eric Jones is 60 to 1 at the longest. Oh, Gregson's 60 to 1. I don't hate sprinkling some of these long shots. We just saw Harrison Burton win a super speedway race, and he's 80 to 1.
Right. Yeah, Eric Jones. Last year, 2023 is 11th year, 8th the year before, or earlier that year, 4th the year before. We know how good he is in super speedways. Yeah, I mean it's definitely like. I feel like this is once again, though, the week. I don't feel like there's any value on the favorites. Like Blaney sitting there at 10 to 1. I'm not betting, even though he's ran the best at Atlanta pretty much every time. But I'm not. It's still one of those where I'm not betting it.
Right. I agree with you.
top 10 lines this week are garbage. There's not even any good long shots. The best I saw was like John Hunter Nemechek at 7-1, which he's actually done pretty well on super speedways this year.
Yeah.
I could possibly get behind that. Same like Zane Smith was 7-1.
Yeah, I could get behind Zane Smith and John Hunter Nemechek at 7-1. I mean, I liked him at Daytona. Now that, to be fair, that's a crazier race, right? But yeah, I don't mind 7-1 at drafting tracks. Daniel Hemrick 7-1. I don't mind that. Zane Smith 10-1 at Bet365.
I'd like to see it get longer, and I think it will after practice. I think books are being really stingy right now on their odds, and I think that we're going to get some longer odds after qualifying. But that's another aspect.
Does DraftKings have correlated top tens?
I don't know. Last I checked, they didn't even have top tens up. But
that's fair.
One thing to note, though, speaking of starting position, a lot of the top starters here in the first race this year also finished up there. Michael McDowell started on the pole, led 27 laps. He finished 8th. Kyle Busch started 3rd, finished 3rd. Ryan Blaney started 6th, finished 2nd. Christopher Bell started 7th, finished 9th. Cindric started 8th, finished 4th. Does that aspect of it kind of does that have to weigh in your mind this week when it comes to DFS?
No, I don't think so. Because those guys aren't like McDowell starting on pole and finishing 8th isn't going to be in any winning DFS contest unless he leads shit tons of laps, you know. Because you're not getting fastest laps while running out front.
Right. And that's
like,
one thing.
If we look at a lot of races, like for example, we look at a race where Kyle Larson's just dominant, like a normal regular season race. He could lead like 20, 30, or I should say he could have like 20, 30% fastest laps. The most percentage of fastest laps at any of the Atlanta races for a driver that completed the full race is 6%, which is 16 fastest laps out of 260 for the 260 lap Atlanta race. So we're talking 8 points.
Yeah. One thing to note, though, with laps led, like you said, if you're going to pick a pole sitter, he's going to need to lead a shit ton of laps. We saw Logano from the pole, win here from the pole in 2023. He led 140 laps. Eric Almirola started on the pole. In 2023, he led 46. That probably wasn't enough, especially because he finished 18th. And then Chase Elliott won from the pole here in 2022, leading 96 laps. So I think this race is a little, like you said, it's not a super speedway. It's a pseudo speedway.
Mm-hmm.
I think it opens the door a little bit more to go against, typically I'm on super speedways. I'm not picking the pole sitter. I'm definitely going to be opening my thoughts depending on who wins the pole. To that when it comes to DFS building. And obviously it depends who it is. If it's Ryan Blaney, I think there's a great chance that he gets up there and leads a shit ton of laps. If it's Joey Logano, I think he gets up there and leads a shit ton of laps. Now, if it's someone like Michael McDowell, I think we've seen how he races on super speedways. Yeah, he's going to probably lead the first stint, but then he's going to fall back and he's not going to get back up there. So
there have been 6 drivers that have led at least 45 laps in an Atlanta race. They started first, fourth, and 12th. So you really want to be starting in the first 2 rows, and then randomly, somebody from further back will lead a whole bunch of laps, which was William Byron in the first Atlanta race that was ever run on this configuration back in 2022. He started 12th, led 111 laps.
That's another thing with Atlanta is this new Atlanta, which surprising but not. So the first 3 races, most laps led, Byron with 111, Chase Elliott 96, Logano 140. And then we got to where the most laps led was 46 in July of 2023. And then first race this season, the high was 58, and it was more spread out.
Yeah.
So it's getting more and more like the Daytonas and Talladegas as far as laps led, where, you do just need to focus on finishing or place differential and then finishing position as well.
Yep.
As far as DFS goes.
Yeah, especially because, like I said, fastest laps are just distributed all over the place.
Now, what's interesting is as far as DraftKings goes, people still quite aren't getting that memo at Atlanta. So the first race here this season, Eric Jones started dead last. He was 51% owned. BJ McLeod was 2.5% owned, starting 36th. Carson Hocevar was 14% owned, starting 35th. Justin Haley was 12% owned, starting 31st. Like, I feel like as far as ownership wise for these place differential plays, there's a history of having even more of an edge at Atlanta just because people still aren't quite grasping that concept of, hey, this actually is a lot like Daytona and Talladega.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Excuse me, I would agree with that. Especially this Daytona, which was this most recent Atlanta earlier this year, which is crazy. I mean, BJ McLeod gained 19 spots.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he finished 19th, so it wasn't great, but Eric Jones started 40th, finished 17th. We look, and Cody Ware finished 4th. I'm looking at Daytona. I don't know. I don't know why I got track selected. What the hell?
Kaz Grala finished 14th in the first Atlanta race here. Started 33rd.
Now I have Atlanta up. I was sorry. Those were, but yeah, BJ McLeod started 36th, finished 24th at Atlanta 1, and would have finished, 24th even if he was the last car to finish the race, because only 22 ended up on the lead lap, like you were saying. Denny Hamlin ended up one lap down, and then everybody from there back pretty much didn't finish the race. But you get the idea. Like, let's go look at some of these top finishers. Like Daniel Suarez started 23rd, finished 1st. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. started 27th, finished 6th. Corey LaJoie started 32nd, finished 13th. There's almost one here before. Kaz Grala, like you mentioned, 33rd to 14th. So you don't need to go crazy under on these guys. Now, it's certainly no Daytona chaos race. It's certainly not that, but it is a race where Kaz Grala can finish 14th in the midst of 22 cars on the lead lap.
Yeah, it's still, or you're going to have those shit boxes, and they're going to just hang out the back. But if you get, like I said, when I was just going through the number of cars that end up on the lead lap at these Atlanta races, if you stay in the back and do that, and typical Atlanta happens in this next gen car, you're probably going to walk away with a top 20 finish. Which, a Kaz Grala starting 33rd is a good play on DraftKings. And
here's the thing, like Kaz Grala starting 33rd, I would probably typically have around 10 to 15% optimal at a chaos race, maybe 15%, let's say. Have that for an Atlanta race. Like, it's less chaotic, but he still can. But if they're going to be 5% owned and they're 8 to 10% optimal, go overweight on him.
Yeah, he was 2.5% owned in the big GPP
earlier. Oh my God.
Today.
Yeah, then play him
starting 33rd. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Get a little leverage there.
Yep. And same with McLeod. He was 2.5%.
Crazy.
And a big part of that was because Eric Jones started last. Corey LaJoie started 32nd. He got 45% ownership. Chase Elliott started 28th. He got 52% ownership. But even Stenhouse. Stenhouse started 27th. He was 15% owned.
Wow.
Hemrick started 26th. He was 7% owned. So this is a potential week for some good DFS leverage.
Yeah.
To be to be contrarian, kind of. Especially because Atlanta seems to get like the guys like the Joey Logano's, the Ryan Blaney's starting up front, which they're artificially going to have their ownership increase, which I just said, like, they could lead a bunch of laps, but a lot of times they're not worth the pick. So it's going to be a fun week to build DFS lineups, as always, at Atlanta. But the 5 winners in the 5 races here on this new track in the next gen era, Daniel Suarez won earlier this year. Last year, we had William Byron get his second win on this new Atlanta. Joey Logano was the first winner. Chase Elliott won in July of 2022. And then William Byron March of 2022 in the first race here. Other guys that have been solid here, like you said, Corey LaJoie has almost won a race here. He was 5th in 2022. He was, earlier this year, he was 13th. Daniel Suarez has been ridiculously good here. First, got the win earlier this year. Last year, he was 2nd. Before that, in 2022, he was 6th and 4th. So 4 top 6 finishes for Suarez in 5 Atlanta races. Wouldn't that be something if he comes out and just does the Atlanta sweep and gets into the second round of these playoffs?
Yeah, that'd be pretty wild. But the way he's run here, not out of the realm of possibility. So, yeah, I mean, I think Suarez definitely has this one circled. This and Watkins Glen, he has to have circled, right?
Yeah. He's sitting at 22-1. Is that good enough to bet him, considering his track record here?
No.
Not that track record means a lot here, but...
But what about plus 375 for a top 5?
Mm-hmm.
That's a little more enticing. I haven't made any bets yet, like you were saying, but I think I probably look towards more like the top 5 for Suarez.
Yeah, I'm just not. I don't know why, but I'm not even thinking about betting anything right now. Like there's some
Same.
if I had to bet, I would, but I'm not. I'm ready to. I'm probably just going to enjoy this race. I feel like I do that with most Atlanta races. Like I'm usually Atlanta's a low one on my activity, which is okay to have in NASCAR betting. You don't have to bet every week.
No, you definitely don't have to.
Let me see here.
I'll tell you though, more I look, the more I like Chase Briscoe.
Yeah?
Yeah. He ran 86.2% of his laps inside the top 15 earlier this year. Looking at past races, how he's done here. And I know recently Chase Briscoe has been awesome in terms of leading laps at Daytona and or Talladega. He started inside the top 14 in every single Atlanta race. So the more I look at it, the more I like him, but then he doesn't get his finishes. So it's one of those things like he runs well, but then he doesn't finish well. Is that because of him, or is that because of luck, or what is it? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
You know who I have my eye on? That another upset?
Who do you get?
Austin Cindric.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I think that one's
in addition to Suarez, like
much more obvious.
I feel like, it is much more obvious. But Cindric is 5th best average running position at Atlanta in the 5 races. I'll tell you what, though, Briscoe's right there with Suarez in average running position.
Yep.
Suarez is 10th and Briscoe's 11th.
Yep. So I'm saying, like, Briscoe is kind of like similar to Daniel Suarez in that they both can get up front. Suarez has had the better finishes, but it's like, is that luck? Whereas Briscoe hasn't quite had the finishes because they have a lot of similar statistics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that'd be a fun head-to-head to bet because head-to-head to bet because I think Cindric could be heavily favored there, but Briscoe's not as it's not as wide as a gap as people think.
Yeah.
Who else you want to talk about?
I don't have a lot. I mean, it's Atlanta. Like,
Right.
it's a pseudo speedway, bake in some 1.5 mile type, racing, and throw in some drafting racing, and that's kind of what you get. You get a little hybrid of drafting and super speedway. I mean, I don't know. Austin Dillon's 60-1. I wouldn't hate that at a normal super speedway, I don't think.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I like it at Atlanta. It's never finished better than 20th, but the very first Atlanta race, he ran 76% of the laps that he did complete. He only completed 101 laps inside the top 15. Tough to say.
Yeah. But before we get to picks to win and 36 for 36, we need to make our predictions for the first four out.
Yes, we do.
And I want to do first four out and the most likely big name driver that you think
Misses.
has yeah. You know what I'm trying to get there.
Yeah. I will say I do like Ricky Stenhouse 50-1. He's led laps in four of the 5 Atlanta races, including 22 and 7.
I didn't realize he was 50-1.
Yeah,
I must have glazed over that. Yeah, 50-1 there.
So he's led 32 out of 1067. Let me get the exact percentage on that. Almost exactly 3% of the laps he's run, he's led. They're getting 50-1. I might bet Stenhouse 50-1.
Sixth and 10th in the last 2 Atlanta races.
Yeah.
We didn't have issues.
Those weren't the races that he led 22 laps in the race he finished 31st because his tire blew while he was leading.
Yep.
Might have to bet some Stenhouse again.
Oh, boy. You know it's a super speedway or pseudo speedway week when you're betting Stenhouse.
Yep.
That's what's fun. Oh. But who's your first 4 out?
This one's so tough just because of the round, you know?
Yep. And I think our opinions might change depending on how Atlanta goes, you know?
Oh, yeah, totally. I'm going to say Chase Briscoe's out. I don't think, even though he's a capable road course racer, I don't think Watkins Glen sets up the best for him, just in terms of, there's a lot of other guys that are very good. Like Martin Truex Jr. is very good at Watkins Glen. Ty Gibbs should be very good at Watkins Glen. I want to say Harrison Burton's out.
Yep.
Unless he wins Atlanta, I can't see him making it through. I'm gonna say, man, this is tough.
It is.
It's so tough. Jeez. I'm going to say Austin Cindric's out unless he wins Atlanta.
Okay.
Woo, this is tough. I'm going to throw a little wrench in here. And I'm going to say Brad Keselowski's out.
Ooh. That's interesting.
I don't think Glenn is going to be
he sucks at the Glen.
A strong... Well, he was always better at the Glen than Sonoma.
Lately, though, he's not good at the Glen.
Yeah, but 15th, 19th, 35th are his last 3 finishes. And just looking at road courses this year, 33rd at Coda DNF. What else do we have? 13th at Sonoma, which is interesting, and 18th at Chicago Street Course. Maybe I jumped the gun on that pick because he's really good at Bristol.
Yeah, he's really good at Bristol. You want to switch it?
Yeah, I like Daniel Suarez. I like Glenn for him, and I like Bristol for him. He's been pretty good at concrete, pretty good at Bristol, Dover throughout his career, relative to his average track. I'm not saying he's amazing at Bristol, but although I will say with Trackhouse, he's only finished 18th to 22nd, so that's not good.
Nope.
But Atlanta should be good for him. And if he can improve on Bristol, I think he makes it through. So I've got Burton, Briscoe, Cindric. Last one's really tough, man.
It is.
Last one's really tough. The last one's really tough. I kind of like my gut call on Keselowski. My other gut call was Alex Bowman. I think this is a good round for
fourth at Bristol earlier this year for Bowman.
I know, that's the problem. Like, he was good at Bristol earlier this year, but traditionally, he hasn't been amazing at Bristol. If you look at last year, it was 13th, 32nd the year before, 5th before that, which is pretty good, of course. 16th, 15th, and 23rd, and 37th. So he's like hit or miss at Bristol, and if he has a miss, it could go wrong for him. I don't fancy him too much at Atlanta. He should be fine at Watkins Glen. He could go anywhere from potential win at Watkins Glen to what he's done the last 3 races, which is 23rd, 14th, and 20th, which is actually worse than Keselowski's done. All right, Alex Bowman.
Alex Bowman? I can get behind that pick. I will note, like I said, I'm working on my full-length article. So my picks here could change for when that article comes out as my first 4 out, because I might dig into something deeper. But straight off the hook here, just going gut. First 4 out, I think Harrison Burton's a gimme. That's a free space. Unless he wins Atlanta, he's out. Chase Briscoe, I think, is out. He's decent he's pretty good at Bristol. Decent at Watkins Glen. I think he's going to need too much help to get out of this round. Outside of a win. Like all these guys, outside of a win at Atlanta. I think Daniel Suarez is out. I feel like Trackhouse has lost their edge a little bit at road courses, and I'm not happy with his speed at Bristol. Has not finished better than 18th there since 2019.
Yeah.
So unless he wins at Atlanta, which obviously he could. So I think my first 3 out are Harrison Burton, Chase Briscoe, Daniel Suarez. Now here's where I think it can get interesting. I'm with you there on Keselowski. I think there's a good chance that he could be in position to need a good race at Bristol, and I don't think you want that in this round. Nobody wants that in this round because we don't know what the hell to expect with those tires. That could easily become a shit show race. And like I said, I think there's a decent chance that we get an upset out of this round. I want to go Bowman here. I could go Cindric here. But I'm going to go with an upset. I'm going upset, man. Give me Joey Logano.
That's not an upset. The guy who's 15th in points is not an upset.
Cindric and Bowman over him, though?
Yeah, but look at this. Alex Bowman finished 13th in points. Joey Logano finished 15th in points.
Okay, you want me to go with a real upset? My number 2 choice there?
Oh, I'm just saying, I get it, but like Joey Logano ran 15th all year. He was behind Bubba Wallace. He was behind Chris Buescher. He was behind Ross Chastain in points. Those guys are out. So it wouldn't surprise me if Joe Logano's out.
All right, Ryan Blaney.
Whoa!
Out. Defending champion, first round exit, out. Because he has issues if he could have issues at Atlanta, he's not a stellar road course racer, and he constantly runs into issues at Bristol. Despite having a fast car every single time, he always runs into issues. Give me Ryan Blaney first out.
I can see that.
And other big name that's obviously a big name driver that I think is going to be out. But another one, I already alluded to it earlier, Denny Hamlin. I think there's a decent chance that Denny Hamlin misses out. Much higher than people expect.
It's going to be interesting.
Who's your big name guy that you could see missing out on next round?
Honestly, I think it's probably Denny Hamlin.
Yep. That penalty hurts. That was a big penalty.
I prefer Chase Elliott to Denny Hamlin in the combination of Glenn and Bristol, just because of Glenn.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Now, obviously, Hamlin won Bristol earlier this year, but
all it takes is for him to have the tire issue or somebody to crash in front of him. Have a Blaney at Bristol. Something happens.
Yep.
And Atlanta's Atlanta. We saw him get caught up in 3 wrecks earlier this year, Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's there's our picks. You got Briscoe, Burton, Cindric, and Bowman as your first 4 out. I'm going Briscoe, Burton, Suarez, and Blaney. It's my first 4 out. I think Cindric gets it done. I think he advances somehow. That little luck box. But on to picks to win. Once again, Jordan Jinx hit last week. I had Tyler Reddick, and he was sick all weekend. You had Kyle Larson. He finished 4th, so another solid pick there for you. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in double-digit land once again. You're going first this week at Atlanta 2. Who you got to win this race?
My amigo, Daniel Suarez.
I like it.
Which is partly why I didn't pick him to be out in this round. Because I knew I had him for 36 for 36. Gotta play the correlation there.
Wait, so you're going winner and 36 for 36.
No, I'm sorry. I was doing 36 for 36.
Oh. Yeah, we're doing winner right now.
We're doing winner. Well, my 36 for 36 pick.
Yep.
Winner. I'm not going Daniel Suarez to win. Even though that would be correlated as well. Give me William Byron.
William Byron. I like that pick. It seems like a Byron week, doesn't it? Like, we haven't really talked about him in a while, and then he's just going to come out and win, And
yeah.
This potential chaos of a round 1, he's just going to, be good after 1 week and not have to worry about shit.
Yeah.
It seems like a good William Byron week. I like that. And like I said, 2-time winner here in the 5 races on this new track. So, not a bad pick there. I feel like I can only go one route here, and as much of a jinx as my picks have been, I got to jinx the guy that I just said is going to go out first round. Give me Ryan Blaney as my pick to win this week. And I'm sorry to all Ryan Blaney fans, because there's no way he's finishing better than 10th this week. No way.
Not the way you've been jinxing.
My, let me see here. Cincy All-Star break. 13 races. My average finish of my pick to win is 18.3.
Oh, man. That's not good.
That is not a small sample size. Man, that is awful. That's not as bad as your bad luck, but that's getting up there.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
All right. 36, you're going Suarez?
Yep, going Suarez.
I
One
like
of those penciled in already ones.
Yep. I like that. I'm going. There's two super speedway races left. There's 3 less than stellar guys I got left, and that is John Hunter Nemechek, Zane Smith, and Corey LaJoie. And I'm gonna go with the guy that just got his first top 10 on a non-drafting track. I'm going Corey LaJoie at Atlanta 2.
Makes sense. Guy almost won here. Almost won
Please don't wreck. Please don't wreck. After last week, how I somehow pulled a Briscoe win out of my ass.
Unbelievable.
I'm right. Like this is getting ridiculous.
Yeah. You're having a golden season. Like it's
literally
unbelievable.
Like imagine if I wouldn't have had Barry at Gateway, and even Stenhouse at Nashville. Like this year, or even Gregson at Bristol. Like those are my 3 bad races. I've had 3 bad races. I'm basically Chase Elliott right now. I've only had a handful of bad races. Not even a handful. Half a handful. It's insane. The amount of luck. Like, how the hell do I pull an Austin Dillon win out of Richmond and a Briscoe win out of Darlington? Are you kidding me?
Incredible. Incredible.
That is stupid. And I got a top 10 out of Hemrick at Daytona. Stupid. So, after 26 weeks, I'm sitting at 681. Nick, you're sitting at 593. Definitely a possibility I could piss this one away, but I felt like last week was a good chance for you to make up some points, and I added 14 to the lead. So
I was feeling proud of myself because I got 30 points out of Chase Briscoe back in the first Phoenix race, and you ended up getting 57. 50 fucking 7.
Just stupid. Oh my god. What is is this plus or minus accurate?
I haven't updated those, but what I will say is for the number 14 car, I was plus 9.4 for Phoenix heading into last weekend. And if we use last weekend's points, you were plus 36.4 on Chase Briscoe, which isn't right clearly because 27-point difference. Oh, that is right. So yeah, you outdid me by 27 points on Chase Briscoe. You're plus minus on him. If we use last week's average, not including after Darlington.
Oh my gosh.
You were plus 36.4. We can obviously add 50 here. Let's just do 514 plus 57 is 571. Let's do 26 races. So yeah, you're plus 35 versus Briscoe's average points this year. I'm plus. My Briscoe race was plus 8, which is good. Like we're averaging, plus 5 for you and plus 2.3, plus 5.7 for you, plus 2.3 for me. Like plus 8 is better than we've been averaging all year. You got plus 30.
Oh my god.
Crazy.
That's awesome.
Crazy. Just unbelievable.
Like I said, I think all of your bad luck betting has shifted to me good luck in 36 for 36 because every week I'm like, how the hell did I pull that out of my ass? And that's with the Austin. Like, imagine if Austin Dillon didn't get that 25-point penalty at Richmond. I'm sitting at 706 to your 593. Oh shit!
Here's the funny thing: if we look at the standings on NASCAR.com of the 36 for 36 guys. So I'm just going to delete our points here. Steve Luvender, You had 624 going into Darlington. Steve Luvender had 635. So you're right up there with him. The NASCAR community, Reddit community, had 591, I think it was. 591. And I had 550 going in, so I wasn't quite there with the NASCAR community. Dustin Albino had 68 less than Luvender, so that's 567. And Cameron Richardson had 104 less than Luvender, so 531. So I would have been in fourth out of 6 if we included me and you. You would have been second out of 6. But after that, Luvender picked Ross Chastain. So you would have passed Steve Luvender after that. So you'd be leading. If it was the 6 of us, you'd be leading all 6 of us in 36 for 36. That's how well you're doing. You are leading everybody.
And like I said, even with that penalty at Richmond.
Yep. Even with the Richmond penalty. Yeah, without the Richmond penalty, you were ahead of Luvender heading into Darlington.
I'm going to have to tag Steve Luvender when I tweet out screenshot of our standings.
For sure. I had a good race. Yeah. I mean, I got 43 from Denny Hamlin.
I know.
Like, that's actually a good race, right? He's had 755 points this year because of his 75-point penalty. Let me give him 75 points back. So that would be 25, 30, 830. That's still 10 points above his average race this year. The 43 points that he got. 9.8 points above his average race this year if we give him his penalty back. Like, I had a very good week from Denny Hamlin, and I still lost 14 points to you.
Man.
And even more in terms of plus minus.
God.
So you're plus 30. I was plus 10.
I'm trying to see which drivers, so we both did really good on Logano as far as his average and what we got out of him. We both picked Gillen the same week. We both picked 41 the same week.
Here, we can just do this. Some of these two.
Oh, yeah.
The number 6 car, Keselowski, we combined for 97 points. That's our highest combined score this year.
Yep.
But yeah, Briscoe, we combined for 87, which is one of our top ones. We did 88 points combined on Logano, like you said. So Briscoe combined was our third best this year of the.
Who would have thought that?
2.
I mean, obviously, I still have quite a few.
Yeah, there's certainly plenty left, and so a lot of these guys we still have 1 or even 0. But if we take, here's what we'll do: we'll take that divided by count of these 2, and then we need to take that minus points per race. Here's our combined plus minus average. That way, if only one of us has done it, we can, account for that. So the 20 car, Christopher Bell, is the highest plus minus we have prior to me updating the standings. But Christopher Bell is our combined best versus average. Chase Briscoe is 22.9 average, which is our second best versus average. Brad Keselowski would be third, Joey Logano would be third, and Keselowski and Harrison Burton are tied for fourth in terms of plus minus.
Harrison Burton, Jesus.
That's because we both used Harrison Burton in the same race.
Talladega.
He did well at Talladega. 32 points at the first Talladega. So, yep. Our top 4 in terms of combined plus minus is Christopher Bell, but you still have to pick him. Our top 3 in terms of plus minus, where we both made a pick, is Joey Logano and then Keselowski Burton tied. So pretty interesting. Chase Briscoe has been the star of 36 for 36 this season when you combine our picks.
Just one last dagger for you, and Briscoe making the playoffs, right?
Yep.
All right. You got anything else before we head off into Atlanta?
I do not.
All right. Good luck to everybody this weekend. Your bets and fantasy, and we'll talk to you next week when we get to Watkins Glen before Bristol. So, could get crazy. We could see a crazy race this weekend. I'm hoping for it. Like always, I'm rooting for chaos.
Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah. All right. Good luck, everybody. See ya.